Welcome to Custom Homebuilders Solutions, a web-based software, also known as CHS, a standalone accounting suite focused on job costing and profit management for professional home builders.
Hi there again, this is Carol King, the developer of Custom Homebuilders Solutions, also known as CHS. This video will be a continuation of a previous introduction video about where I was trying to make a point that you can get that sale to that prospective home buyer by using tools in CHS, especially the great job proposal of your job costs that you're expecting at a marked up amount, write great buyer notes about every single cost center that you're doing, and come up with the price to put on that job proposal based on the type of contract, whether it's fixed, cost plus markup, etc. So let's get started doing some tutorials about how that happens. So I've opened the job budget worksheet to do an estimate of job costs for a particular job that I set up. And I may have started this budget worksheet by copying a budget from another job that I set up as a template to copy from. Or I may have brought in all of the cost code centers that we've set up to use in CHS. And by the way, this builder is using the NAHB cost codes, they call it, or cost centers, that you can just load when you get CHS and then edit and tweak and change those as you like. Or you can set up these cost centers on your own and your own groupings of these, etc. But I just wanted to point that out. This is not necessarily like, oh, I get CHS and these are what I have. Also, this builder did bring in all the cost codes that he had set up, and then once he was finished doing his work of a budget, he used a tool over here to remove 0 lines. But a lot of builders like to bring all the lines in and then do all their work, and then they'll get rid of the 0 lines when they make sure they didn't forget something. So they bring them all in to help them with that. But what I'd like to talk first about is how I mentioned just a little bit ago that I have a marked up column. Notice that the markup percent on all these is 0% right now, so the budget and the marked up is the same, and I'm going to show you how, based on the price that we set, we can quickly fill this markup in without typing it in on every record. And what I'm trying to show you is, in this video, is how what you do while working on the budget can make it so that you give a great job proposal to a prospective customer of yours. So I just wanted to let's use roofing to demonstrate something about that. So I'm going to do a keyword search for groups and just type roof in here and just search for that instead of scrolling down to find it. Now I'm clicking on the line, and this brings up the window, and that's not what this video is about how all of this stuff is done over here. What my point in this video is that after those builders started saying I want to show my customer, I added a box way back for buyer notes where you can do rich text. You can make these different colors, make them bold, use some bulleted points like he did. And I want to show you a trick that I did here just to get this description in. The builder has a lot of other descriptions. But there was an uploaded bid attached when he did a bid request. You can see here, if you look at comments, that we sent out a bid request with an attachment of the request for them to fill out from our numbers based on that. We sent a bid request out to somebody called Talent Roofing. If I click this, I could see the bid request that I sent out to them. But then they answered, and they said, our proposal for roofing labor is attached. And I could see that and click on it, and I saved it down and then attached it to my budget line. But you can see that this is their Talent Roofing bid. I'm going to leave that open for just a second up here in another tab. But this starts being a list of comments about this particular cost code 4030, which is roofing. So I wanted to show you that, and that then we did attach it to this budget line, so I could have opened it there, but I already have it open, so it's attached here. And the reason I was pointing that out is that what I did, let me go ahead and open that back up, just to get some verbiage in here, is I took this bid and I highlighted over all this stuff, and I dropped it into the notes. And I did notice that the color hasn't been filled in. So let me show you what I did. First of all, in the notes, it says per quote from Talent Roofing, which is explaining this amount over here, may change based on roof color selection by Jeff. Jeff is the owner, Jeff Loveman. But then I pasted in that verbiage, and then I sat and used some of the tools to bullet some of the stuff that they had on their bids so that it's a description of what we're paying for the roofing labor here. But I wanted to show you one other thing that you could do. First of all, notice there's a link up here for plan room uploads. So you could click that and you can upload various plans that you want into the plan room for this job. So what I want is I want to put a link to the roofing plan into this on the budget. So here's Plan Room Loveman, and when you upload your plans you need to title them really well so that you can identify them when you title them inside CHS and use them again. And I'm selecting this roof framing plan to also go in my notes. Those get added at the end of the notes, so if you prefer them at the front you might do them first and then do your verbiage, or you could always highlight over this and cut it and then paste it at the top, whatever you like. But I wanted to show you how quickly I have put a link to the roofing plans in this particular window, buyer notes. If I didn't want the buyer to have a link to those roofing plans for some reason, I still might put that link up here in my internal notes just so that I'd have it. And then I'd probably break it right here just so I could highlight over it, copy paste it into a browser and see these plans. So that's what I wanted to point out, is how elaborate you can get with your notes that you're writing to the home buyer, to your prospective customer or whoever it is, before you make a proposal. This is just one example of the set of notes. When I open the proposal in a minute, you'll see how many notes this builder was writing. In my first video, I talked about how very important it was for the builder to put hands on, or at least the estimator to put hands on, and not just hand a list of numbers to a bookkeeper to come over here and put in the budget. Because there's almost no bookkeeper that could write the kind of notes that you will write here to the customer as the budget is done. You can do a very elaborate one, and like I said, probably get the sale just from this budget proposal that you give. So let's go ahead and submit this, the changes that I made, and let's close. So let's go ahead and show all of these just because. Okay, first of all, I want to go and set a contract price because I'm all through doing all of my budgeting and I removed zero lines, etc., and I'm happy with that. But remember, we still don't have a markup percent, and I'm going to show you a trick for how we're going to get the markup percent in here and how we're going to set the price. This is another thing I ended up adding into CHS because I didn't used to be involved in setting the price, but now CHS is very involved in setting the price. When I was a bookkeeper, I wasn't involved. First of all, this is marked as a fixed contract. Different things would happen if we did cost plus markup and cost plus fee, and I'll show you a little example of that in just a minute. But let's say we've been told we need to get a desired profit percent, a gross profit percent of 20%. And please go see the tool at chssoftware.com for calculating what the difference is between markup and margin percents and what gross profit is. There's a tool there, if you look down the screen, that you can click on and get a really good video about what the differences are. And behind this question mark button we give a little explanation about what the difference between markup and margin profit percent is. Notice that when I put 20% in here, CHS suggested that the markup would be 25% to get that kind of that profit percent. And it is suggesting a price. Now you might look at that, since this is fixed contract, and put in something like $510,000, but we're going to start working with just that suggested price from CHS as our price right here. If I could type while I do videos. And notice that it's doing some recalculating, and now it's put the fixed price minus the job budget amount, and the original estimated profit is this, and 20%. So it's figured that out, and if I close this, that's helping me come up with the price. If I close this, CHS is going to detect that the marked up amount is not equaling that price that we just put in. So let's say yes, let's open a tool for that. Now you could just type in a percent like 25%, but we're really wanting to equal our contract price, and if we had put in 510,000, we want it to calculate a markup percent to equal that, to come up to equal that. But the other reason I'm going to go over here instead of just typing one in to mark it all up is that with fixed contract prices, you might give them some allowances and tell them this is how much you can spend on appliances or flooring or carpet, and you mark those as allowances in CHS, and it knows which ones of your budget lines are allowances. But what the builders told me is they did not want, when they give that proposal, they did not want the allowance lines to be the marked up amount, because they don't want the prospective buyer to think that's the amount that they would go and spend for their flooring or cabinets when they're out there. So we have one tool that would just put this, basically 25% is what it calculated, which makes sense, based on the contract price, the budgeted costs, etc. But we did another tool that says, or have CHS calculate and apply a markup percent based on the contract price and budgeted costs that are not allowances. So I want to show you what happens when I do that. So we say, OK, update. It's telling me about that and what to do about it, but I'm here talking, so you don't need to read that. Now notice that the markup percent that got placed in here is 30.24. But let's look for some lines that have a unit measure of allowance, which is how you mark which ones are allowances. And notice that has a 0 markup percent, and these allowances have a 0 markup percent. But look how close we came to our sales price with that marked up column. Now notice that it's 0.28, and if I remember correctly, we might be a couple pennies off because there's so much rounding in doing all of that. So I might come back here because I'm aware, because I've used CHS a while, that when I do the budget proposal to them, I want the price that shows on it to equal the marked up column that I'm about to show them. So I just changed that to match that up just a little bit, and I'll close that. So let's get on to that great proposal that you could send to that prospective customer. And we do that by expanding over here on the menu, the budget reports, and we do all budget reports. The other thing that came into play is because they wanted to start giving these to the customers instead of just using them as their own internal job cost budget. The builders, I gave them a way to set up different styles. So if I do a drop down here, this builder has set up something that is called construction budget, that probably is his real thing after he does it, or estimated construction costs, and one called proposal. With that, he set up a title that he wants on the budget reports, he set up some verbiage for the header, and he set up a footer that goes with one that's called a proposal. I'm not going to go into showing all that because this would be too long. Now don't be overwhelmed by this screen of all the reports of the budget that you can do, because these 3 columns, if you'll start looking at the buttons, are the same 3 columns. But this column is usually used for a cost plus builder fee contract where you're giving the budgeted costs only with the buyer notes maybe, so that they do, if it's cost plus builder fee, they just see your budgeted things and then a builder fee is added at the end of the proposal. This would probably be cost plus markup type jobs where you're showing both the budgeted column like we see on that worksheet plus the marked up amount, because the home buyers that are building with cost plus get to see a lot of the detail. But this is the column that we're interested in for a fixed contract, which would be just the marked up amounts only, and we're interested in a proposal that has just the buyer notes, not all notes. All notes would be internal and buyer notes, but I'm going to use this one with buyer notes. I'm going to export it to PDF. It opens first as a web view that's sort of like a rough draft, but it opens like that so you can send everything to Excel if there's some reason you want to send reports to Excel. But here it is in my Adobe Acrobat Reader now is what I opened. And the builder, by selecting the style of proposal, made it be that this was the title up here. He did some highlighting and some stuff in his header area and some explanation that this is a proposal. And at the very bottom footer, he did a thing with his signature, etc. I just showed you that real fast to show that he's controlling that, and that came into play because of these builders asking for things. But notice that all those notes that we were seeing for buyer notes are on here. See how elaborate this is, and he's been pretty he's had quite a bit of stuff that he's put in. But also notice that we're having, like, this is a plan room electrical check set plan that the home buyer, if you email this to them or give it to them via a comment in CHS, etc., and they open it, see how it turns into a hand, they will be able to click and see those plans. Now I'm suggesting sometimes when I'm talking, maybe in the Specs Platts Blueprints Cost Center, you just do a whole list of the plans right there. You can see our roofing here that I was demonstrating and how it's printing on this report, and that we have those plans there. So anyway, this is what I'm talking about by they start calling me and saying I got the sale because of the budget proposal that I showed them with all of my information about it, with plans in it, you know, all of that type of thing. So I think you might get the idea. Oh, what I need to mention is that all these numbers are the marked up numbers, and if it does happen to be an allowance, this is actually the original budgeted numbers because we set that markup to 0 on those. But at the bottom, they are all totaling up to our sales price, which is showing over here, and this is the list of all the costs, and it shows all the percentages of the totals that these are, both the groupings and the individual lines. So hopefully that's a little bit impressive to you about how you can do those budget proposals for your prospective buyer. And if you watch some other videos, you'll see that if I, for some reason, just change this to a cost plus builder fee, let's do that for whatever reason. Now it's suggesting a builder fee that I enter, and we put in one that's a penny off because we'd actually tried this before, but it's showing the budget plus the fee. That's kind of like cost plus fee, original price, which might be changing as more costs come in, and hopefully that's in your verbiage, minus the job budget is your estimated profit. So let's just go ahead and close that, and let's just take another look at all the budget reports, and let's do a proposal one again. And I'm just showing you this real quickly so you can see how CHS knows that this has a builder fee with it now, and that I'm going to do just the budgeted costs. And I won't send this to PDF just so I can make the point really fast, but all these costs are the budgeted costs, but all the buyer notes are still there. But the difference is when you come down to the bottom of this one, it totals up those budgeted costs, adds the builder fee to it, and I do probably need to go make a couple pennies adjustment there. But anyway, budget plus builder fee is very close to what the price is there. So I just wanted to point that out, that you have a lot of differences. Now the other thing that you can give them is an allowance report for all those things that you marked as allowance items, and you can do an allowance worksheet and agreement. And you can go through these, and if you're still wanting to change some of the buyer notes because you're about to give them an allowance agreement, based on what we did, this is the budget total. This is not the marked up amounts, so they'll get a real clear thing of what their allowances are, and if you do the allowance agreement. So this is a real nice breakdown, and I could export it to PDF and it would look nicer, but you can get the idea. These are all the budgeted costs and all the notes that go with those various allowance items, with a place for people to sign. So that's why the builders wanted the markup percent on the allowance to be the budgeted cost, not a marked up cost. So when they take this and say this is how much I have to spend for these various things, you might have elaborated even more of what those allowance things that they can go do are in your notes, but you can just get all carried away with these notes so that they have all of that information. Now I've opened real quickly what we call a customer portal, in other words your customer's portal, that you can give them a login and give them a password that they can get into. Now if it's a prospect, you can go ahead and set them up in CHS, mark them as a prospect, and give them access to something like this, and only give them limited buttons for them to see. Once they become a real customer, you will probably have other buttons that they're seeing of things like change orders, that kind of thing that they can approve, and various other things depending on the type of contract it is. If it's a cost plus builder fee or markup, you might be showing them the actual costs with actual attachments that are copies of all their invoices that are entered when the bookkeeper is entering the bills, the job cost bills, which is really great because then you don't have to copy all the invoices for those cost plus customers. They can come here and see them. But back to my point, they could see some photos and you could scroll through them, and yes, I realize this would not be a house that costs $400,000, but I just went and grabbed some picture. And they can see the job budget proposal again here by clicking a button, that allowances agreement, and where they're headed over under on allowances after they become a real customer. But they can also do some messaging with you here. You can see some messages that we've already done back and forth to the home buyer. This is where we sent them a copy of the fixed contract proposal. And if they click that paperclip link, they can see that job proposal that we decided to attach and send to them. When we did it in CHS, this got recorded and an email got sent to them with something where they could go and look at this same type of thing of all of their comments from that email. Ignore some of my other playing around comments that I was doing for a future customer. But also I decided while I was working on the roofing, I went and I did a comment to Jeff Loveman and asked, have you decided on the color for your roof? And me as the home buyer could reply to, and it's replying to me because I'm the one who sent it. And I could just put something like roof color, there's one called Duratum or something like that that might make sense. Roof color Duratum, maybe that's enough for this comment. And I have to put my name in here in case it's the wife or whoever to identify who did this comment. And then I'll save it. I could then send it as an email, or I could just leave it here so that the CHS user does see it in their list of comments. But the main thing, they probably will send it as an email, and then I would get an email saying there's been a comment from the home buyer. But I'm not going to do that right now. I'm just going to close this out just so you can get an idea. So anything from the home buyer ends up being in green, and me as a CHS user, when I go back into CHS, will see this type of comment. And this type of comment is attached to the roofing turnkey. And if you open comments over there when you're doing your job budget, you will see all the comments that have been about roofing turnkey. So you could review things as it goes. There'll be more and more comments maybe about this job and cost code, maybe some comments back and forth to Talent Roofing asking them for their bid or other things. This is a home buyer's list of things, so they're not seeing things back and forth to the subs. They're just seeing things back and forth to themselves. So that's a real handy, neat thing. But as a prospect, you could start talking to them. I have some other weird things loaded in here that it showed, but for pictures that they could look at and open. But I just wanted to point that out to you. We've taken this customer a little farther along in our demoing than being a prospect. So we have a little contract balance thing here that's going on. And I could send this to PDF, but it's a fixed price. There's our price. We don't have any change orders yet or any allowances that have gone over. So it's the same price. We haven't caused the price to go up some. And they've given us $20,000 down payment. But as you do things and get interim draw requests from them, etc., those will be listed here, and they can be monitoring what the contract balance is. They can also click this link here and see all the plans you uploaded if you check mark for the buyer to see. So they click on these and open these different plans. So here's a good storage place for their plans. We also did one demo about a draw request we were requesting from our prospects. And they could open that and see that right here and click to open it and see their draw requests. Or you can send the draw requests via a comment that they also can click a paperclip icon and see these draw requests that are going on. But I'm not going to get into big draw requests right now on this video, just letting you know. Maybe you do a fake one or show them somebody else's thing and show them those draw requests to also impress them in order to get that sale. That's all I think I'll say about it. I hope I have proved to you that CHS can be used to get that sale right up front. And thank you so much for watching.